Let's go.
All right, and we're back with our third segment on making kids. How do you make your kids more successful in the 21st century? And
Let's think about that one.
let's think about this
And
one.
I think the operative word, ladies and gentlemen, is think. And we see examples on the big stage and small stage where you're like, what are people thinking? Well, people will say problem solving, critical thinking, and reasoning, thinking outside the box, expanding people's vision, expanding people's view, challenging them, challenging what their beliefs are, and how do you reevaluate? I mean, those are skill sets adults need to know. Let's
Right.
be honest. But if we can give young people hands-on practical opportunities, whether it's based on things that they see in their neighborhood, their community, what they see on the news, things along those lines, because sometimes, like I know, like on the foundation end, when we do the critical thinking exercise, I tell them sometimes you guys may have better solutions than we do because you're seeing things through a totally
Yes.
different lens than we are, and sometimes we see it based on where we are now or where it was when we were there, and it's not to say that's not valid,
I
but
think,
you have to have new approaches. So what do you do to encourage people to come up with new approaches, new ways of thinking,
but
new
there's a
ways of
simple
problem
thing
solving?
when you, and especially with little kids, one of the first things out of their mouths when you go somewhere, you get in the car is "I'm bored," right? Mom, I'm bored. Dad, I'm bored. Yeah, be quiet. And ask them, realistically, what can you do right now? What can you think about right now that'll help you not be bored? And you throw in the word realistically because if you are at an event and you can't leave, realistically, what can you do? And have them think and learn how to problem solve. You're not there to come up with all the solutions for your kids. They have to learn how to critically think. When they make a mistake, when they break something, when they spill something, when something happens, ask them. If you come in and see that they haven't cleaned it up right, and I watched my son and my nephew go through this weekend. My son said to him, what else do you see everything cleaned up? What else do you think you could do? How can you do this better? And he made him think and talk his way through the cleanup process. And I thought, man, that's so much easier than getting upset and just,
It's
doing
huge.
it for them.
It's huge, and I think what makes it kind of annoying is when someone says, "I'm bored." Well, what would you say? Oh no, I just am. It's almost like you don't have a problem with someone stating what they think,
Right.
but provide an option. It kind of ties in with what we talked about previously, like when you're writing your politicians and whatnot. There's nothing wrong with saying, I have an issue with something, but provide an option. How would you better handle this? But if you don't, it's one of those things, if you don't help someone develop that skill, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, and it goes back also to where people, it's almost like I feel like thinking or the lack of thinking is almost celebrated, or, and I don't like saying celebrating ignorance. And, I've thought long and hard, about this. And, for a long time I felt like it was a community thing. Like our people, we celebrate ignorance. I don't want to learn this. I don't want to learn that. And then I think back to the George Bush and John Kerry election. And I remember how they were teasing John Kerry for being too smart and too much of an intellectual. And even now with this election, the things that we're celebrating,
Oh my
the
goodness.
things that we're celebrating, it's like, no, it's not cool. In the business world, it's not cool to not know. If you want to play that game with your friends and whatever, it's fine. But we should not, as a country and especially as a community, be celebrating ignorance. There are certain communities and certain cultures that you will not hear them celebrating the ignorance.
Ignorance, unfortunately, I'm going to say this, ignorance, unfortunately, is celebrated here widespreadly. It really is. It's, even though they'll highlight ignorance in certain communities, like you said, like the Lil Wayne commercial. What idiot, I'm going to say, what idiot is going to pour champagne on a phone? What idiot will do
Okay,
that?
so here's the deal.
But
I wouldn't pour champagne on a book. Like, I can afford 30 million books, right? But I am not going to take a bottle of champagne or a bottle of water and pour it on a book to see, like, that's just, I don't care if it works or doesn't work.
But I think what's scary, you made a good point, looking at the political landscape and other things, like, ignorance is being more embraced than it ever has been, and it means you know how different civilizations have gone through their intellectual and anti-intellectual period?
Yeah.
It is very clear that people who have sense and know better, for lack of a better term, have to be more proactive. Like, it's all right for us to say, hey, this doesn't make sense and this is wrong and all that. We have every right to say that, but now the question is, what are we going to do?
Right.
So people who know better, what are you going to do to, whether you create something to help kids and people think clearer, or are you going to be more proactive in supporting? Because just talking about it isn't going to do anything.
Right.
Talking about it kind of got us here. I mean, seriously, talking about it got us here. So having the conversation and discussion is great because it gives you an idea of what you're dealing with. But now we got to take a step further. What are we prepared to do? What are we going to support that's going to help challenge this anti-intellectualism?
And I think even with kids, teaching them when they do have an issue with their teacher, and I know we can talk about this,
all day.
but even with they have an issue with their teacher, you know, and they come home and complain about it, instead of just kind of feeding into it with them, well, how do you think we can resolve this? How can you resolve this? Have you tried to talk to them? Are you making sure they understand, et cetera, et cetera? It is very important, you know, as we brought up in the beginning, you have to teach your kids how to think, and most importantly, how to problem solve, come up with the solutions.
And I'll say this, as we kind of piece this together, have your, you know how documentation is so huge? Show logically what you've done before you drop the hammer emotionally.
Right.
Seriously.
Yes.
Seriously. That's almost like, yeah, but have your ducks in a row, so when it's time for you to drop out that particular emotional hammer, you've shown this is what we've done to try to do it rationally. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, which way you want to do it.
Right. We'll be back with how to make your kids more successful in the 21st century in a few minutes.